My adopted sister threw my science trophy at my head, screaming, "You don't deserve this," and poisoned my food for getting into college. When I begged my mom to help, she said, "Don't display achievements where Chloe can see them," and later snapped, "If you want what's best for your sister, you'd help her heal." I didn't say a word. That was 8 years ago. This Thanksgiving, she stood on my lawn, screaming that I'd traumatized Chloe all over again. In my family, we were taught that love meant watching my adopted sister Chloe destroy my achievements while screaming, "You don't deserve this," and then forgiving her without an apology. You see, my sister Chloe is now 24, and we adopted her when she was 15 from foster care. When I was 16 and Chloe had just joined our family, I won the regional science fair. I wanted her to be my best friend, so she was the first person I told. Her immediate response was to grab my medal trophy and throw it directly at my skull. "You don't deserve this," echoed through the house before she crumpled to the floor. As my mom stared at me, curled into a ball and crying, she reminded me that it was all my fault. Don't display achievements where Chloe can see them. This set the tone for the next 8 years of my life. It wasn't until one perfect afternoon last spring that the tone was broken, because that's when I got the Johns Hopkins acceptance letter. A lifetime of academic pressure, imposter syndrome, crying into textbooks, all led up to that one moment. I called friends, posted the acceptance, and looked at Baltimore apartments. I was just Mia, not Chloe's trigger, not the family sacrifice, just a future doctor planning her escape, until my mom came home and found me celebrating. "This is wonderful. We need to plan how to make this work." She smiled like she was saying something nice, but her eyes said otherwise. And after an hour of fake niceness, the truth leaked out. "Of course, Chloe will need to come with you. Baltimore has excellent trauma programs, and she can't handle you leaving. I'll help with rent if you get a 2-bedroom. Chloe, in my apartment, with access to my medical equipment, my study materials, my future. Mom, you know what happens when she sees me doing well. She hasn't had an episode in months," she lied, as if Chloe hadn't destroyed my MCAT prep books last week. "If you want what's best for your sister, you'd help her heal." The thing about Chloe's past is that mom told me the story constantly. Chloe was the scapegoat in her foster family. Nothing violent, just 1,000 small cruelties. No birthday presents while the bio daughter got parties. Hand-me-downs while the other girl got new clothes. Report cards ignored while bees got celebrated. "You don't deserve nice things" became their catchphrase. Now Chloe was making it mine. She was stronger, colder, and tougher than me, but even she had an Achilles heel. And that was her predictability. 10 minutes of staring meant destruction was coming. 15 minutes meant total annihilation. Hide anything that matters. Never celebrate where she can see. But medical school can't hide 4 years of achievement. I remember being 18 when Chloe found my college acceptance letters. I didn't find out until I was sitting at the kitchen table, because that's when I noticed a faint white powder in my food. I knew from the smell that it was rat poison. "What the F, you crazy bitch," I exclaimed, pointing my fork at Chloe. Chloe just cackled like a maniac, while my mom lectured me about how I shouldn't brag and the importance of being humble. That was the moment I realized my mother wasn't denying the pattern, she was protecting it. I told mom no, that Chloe wasn't allowed to be anywhere near my dorm, but she could visit Baltimore, FaceTime me all the time, and I'd come home for holidays. I even offered to research trauma programs near home. "Then I'm not helping with any school expenses," mom snapped. "Fine, I'll take out more loans," I responded with a sigh. The next 2 months were a living hell. Mom called relatives saying I was abandoning my traumatized sister. She brought Chloe to my pharmacy job to practice separation. Chloe stared at my white pharmacy coat for 10 minutes before knocking over an entire display of medications. "You don't deserve this," my manager asked them not to return. Fast forward to the week before my white coat ceremony. My aunt called me. "Your mother bought plane tickets. She says you can't exclude Chloe from family milestones. She's been staring at your white coat photo online for days." I knew what that meant. Mom had spent 8 years making sure I understood that Chloe's trauma mattered more than my future. Every destroyed achievement had a matching excuse about foster care, but I wasn't a scared, people-pleasing 16-year-old girl anymore. I was a woman who knew my worth, and I was ready to bite back. So I started planning. First thing I did was change the ceremony location on all my social media, posted about how they moved it to a different building on campus. Then I called the school and explained my situation. The security guard, Douglas, was super understanding. He said he'd keep an eye out for anyone matching their description. I also asked my roommate Patricia to be my lookout. She knew the whole Chloe situation already. The morning of the ceremony, I woke up at 5 a.m., couldn't sleep anyway from nerves. I grabbed my white coat from its hiding spot in Patricia's closet. Yeah, I've been hiding it there for weeks. Learned my lesson about keeping important stuff in my own room. I got dressed in the bathroom with the door locked, even put a chair against it. Paranoid? Maybe. But you try living with someone who poisoned your food. Patricia drove me to campus early. We took her car because mine was too recognizable. I kept checking my phone. Mom had texted 12 times already. All variations of, "Where are you?" And Chloe is so excited to support you. Support, right. Like that time she supported my SAT scores by ripping up my score report. We parked in a different lot than usual. I walked into the building through the back entrance. Douglas was there like he promised. He gave me a thumbs up. No sign of them yet. I went to the prep room where all the other students were getting ready. Everyone was taking selfies and fixing their hair. Normal stuff. I just sat in the corner, watching the door. My friend Eric came over and asked if I was okay. I told him I was just nervous. Didn't mention that my crazy sister might show up and destroy everything. He wouldn't understand anyway. His biggest family drama was his dad missing his soccer games. Must be nice. About 30 minutes before the ceremony, my phone started blowing up. Mom again. This time with photos. Pictures of her and Chloe at the wrong building. The one I'd posted about online. They were standing outside looking confused. Chloe was wearing this weird formal dress, like she was going to prom or something. Mom's texts got angrier. "Where are you? This isn't funny. Answer your phone now." I turned off my phone. Patricia texted me from her spot in the lobby. All clear so far. The ceremony coordinator started lining us up. Alphabetical order by last name. I was in the middle of the pack. Good. Harder to spot. We started walking toward the auditorium. My hands were shaking. Not from stage fright. From waiting for that familiar screech of, "You don't deserve this." The auditorium was packed. Parents everywhere with cameras and flowers. I scanned the crowd as we walked in. Didn't see them. Maybe my plan actually worked. We took our seats on stage. The dean started his speech about dedication and service. I was barely listening. Just kept watching the doors. Then I saw her. Not Chloe. Mom. She was at the back entrance arguing with security. Her face was red. She was pointing at the stage. At me. But Douglas wasn't letting her in. She didn't have a ticket. See, I'd conveniently forgotten to mention that the ceremony was ticket only. Oops. The dean called my name. I stood up and walked across the stage, accepted my white coat, smiled for the official photo. And for the first time in 8 years, I celebrated an achievement without fear. No flying trophies, no destroyed papers, no poison in my food. Just me, in my white coat, starting my future. After the ceremony, I met Patricia outside. She was grinning like crazy. Told me Mom and Chloe had shown up right after I got my coat. Chloe had apparently tried to rush the stage, but security stopped her at the door. The same security that had kept Mom out. Mom made a scene about discrimination and trauma. Other parents started staring. They left before campus police showed up. I checked my phone on the drive home. 47 missed calls, 100+ texts. The last one from Mom was simple. "Come home immediately. We need to talk about your behavior." My behavior. Not Chloe trying to ruin my ceremony. Not her attempting to poison me. My behavior. I didn't go home. Went to Eric's apartment instead. His roommates were having a party. I wore my white coat the whole time. Took a million photos. Posted them all over social media. Every single one. Because for once, I wasn't going to hide my success. I wasn't going to dim my light so Chloe wouldn't feel triggered. The party lasted until 2 a.m. I crashed on Eric's couch. Woke up to more angry texts. This time from Dad. He usually stayed out of Mom and Chloe's drama, but apparently Mom had worked worked him up. His message was all about family loyalty and understanding trauma. Same script, different messenger. I knew I had to go home eventually. My stuff was there, my car, my whole life really. But I also knew things had changed. I'd stood up to them, hidden from them, outsmarted them, and the world hadn't ended. Chloe hadn't spontaneously combusted from not destroying my achievement. Mom hadn't disowned me yet. Patricia picked me up around noon. We drove past my house first, just to scope it out. Mom's car was in the driveway. So was Chloe's. The curtains were drawn. Looked normal from the outside, but I knew better. Inside was probably a war zone of Mom's guilt trips and Chloe's rage. We parked down the street. I texted Dad that I was coming home. Figured he was the safer option. He responded immediately. Said Mom was at her book club. Chloe was in her room. Coast was clear. Still, I made Patricia come with me. Safety in numbers and all that. The house was quiet when we walked in. Too quiet. Dad was in the kitchen looking tired. He started to lecture me about family responsibility. I cut him off. Told him I was just there to pack some things. His face fell. Asked if I was serious. I said yes. I went to my room with Patricia. Started throwing clothes in a suitcase. Grabbed my laptop, chargers, important documents, the stuff that mattered, the stuff Chloe couldn't replace if she destroyed it. Patricia helped me carry boxes to her car. Dad just watched from the doorway. Didn't help. Didn't stop us either. We were almost done when I heard it. The front door slamming. Mom's voice sharp and angry. Then footsteps on the stairs. Fast. Purposeful. I knew that sound. Grabbed the last box and headed for the door. But Chloe was already there, standing in my doorway, staring at my empty room. Her face was blank. That was worse than anger. She looked at me, then at the box in my hands, then back at my room. The staring had started. I checked my watch. Started counting. 1 minute. 2. Patricia shifted nervously beside me. She'd heard the stories, but never seen it happen. 3 minutes. 4. Chloe's hands started shaking. Here it came. But then something weird happened. Instead of screaming, instead of throwing things, Chloe just turned around and walked away. Down the hall to her room. Slammed the door. Patricia and I exchanged looks. That wasn't normal. Chloe always exploded. Always. Mom appeared at the top of the stairs. Her book club outfit was pristine, but her face was twisted with rage. She looked at the boxes in her hands, at my empty room, at me. What do you think you're doing? I told her I was moving out. Found a place closer to school. Needed to focus on my studies. She laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind that made my skin crawl. Said I wasn't going anywhere. That family stayed together. That Chloe needed me. I pushed past her with my box. Patricia followed. Mom grabbed my arm on the stairs. Hard. Her nails dug in. Told me I was being selfish. That I was traumatizing Chloe all over again. That good daughters didn't abandon family. I yanked my arm free. Kept walking. Dad was still in the kitchen, staring at his coffee. Didn't even look up as we passed. Mom followed us outside, listing every sacrifice she'd made. Every time she'd chosen us over herself. Every penny spent on therapy for Chloe. We loaded the last box into Patricia's car. Mom stood on the lawn, arms crossed. If you leave now, don't bother coming back for Thanksgiving. I got in the car. Patricia started the engine. As we pulled away, I saw Chloe watching from her bedroom window, just standing there, staring. It gave me chills. Patricia let me crash at her place for a few days. Her roommate Sandra was cool about it. They had a pull-out couch in the living room. Not ideal, but better than home. I spent those days looking for apartments, checking my bank account, doing math on student loans. The texts from Mom didn't stop. They got worse. She'd moved from anger to manipulation. Messages about Chloe not eating, Chloe crying all night, Chloe asking why I hated her. Classic mom moves. I stopped reading them after day 2. But then Dad started texting. That was new. He usually stayed neutral. His messages were different. Worried. Said Chloe was acting strange. Not her usual strange. Different strange. Quiet. Too quiet. Said she'd been in her room for 3 days straight. I almost caved. Almost drove back to check on her. Patricia talked me out of it. Reminded me this was probably another manipulation. That Chloe was 23, not 4. That she had parents to take care of her. She was right. I knew she was right. Still felt guilty though. Found an apartment on day 4. Studio near campus. Tiny, but mine. The landlord, Roy, didn't care about my family drama. Just wanted first month, last month, and security deposit. I signed the lease that afternoon. Finally had my own place, my own space, my own life. Moving in was easy since I didn't have much. Patricia helped me get the basics. Goodwill furniture, dollar store dishes, Walmart bedding, nothing fancy. Nothing that would hurt too much if Chloe somehow found me and destroyed it all. Old habits die hard. I'd been in my apartment exactly 1 week when Dad showed up. Didn't know how he found me. Probably Patricia's social media. She tagged me in a housewarming selfie. Should have known better. Dad looked terrible. Bags under his eyes, wrinkled shirt, very undad-like. He said we needed to talk about Chloe, about Mom, about everything. I let him in because, well, he was still my dad. He sat on my secondhand couch and just started talking. Told me things I'd never heard before. About the adoption. About Chloe's first few months with us. Apparently it was worse than I knew. Chloe had tried to run away 6 times. Had threatened to hurt herself. Had begged to go back to foster care. Mom had hidden all of it from me. Wanted me to bond with my new sister without baggage. So much for that plan. Dad said the therapist had warned them. Said Chloe might fixate on me. Might see my achievements as threats. Might act out. Mom had promised to handle it, to protect both of us. Instead, she'd chosen Chloe. Every time. And Dad had let her. He apologized. Actually said the words. Said he should have stepped in years ago. Should have protected me too. But Mom was so convinced she could fix Chloe. So sure that enough love and understanding would heal her. And he'd wanted to believe it. Then he dropped the real bomb. Chloe had found my apartment. Had been sitting outside in her car for hours. Watching. Waiting. He'd followed her here. Was trying to talk her into leaving. But she wouldn't budge. Said she needed to see me. To talk to me. To explain something. I looked out my window. Sure enough, there was Chloe's hit-up Honda. Parked right across the street. I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat. Just sitting there. Staring at my building. My skin crawled. How long had she been there? How many times had I walked past without noticing? Dad wanted me to talk to her. Said maybe it would help. Maybe she needed closure. Maybe she wanted to apologize. I laughed. Actually laughed in his face. Chloe apologized? In 8 years, she'd never once said sorry. Not for the trophy. Not for the poison. Not for anything. But Dad kept pushing. Said something was different this time. That Chloe had been acting strange since I left. Not destructive strange. Sad strange. Said she'd been going through old photos. Writing in a journal. Going to therapy without Mom forcing her. I told him no. I was done being Chloe's emotional punching bag. Done hiding my successes. Done living in fear. He could tell her that. He could tell Mom that. I was done with all of it. Dad nodded. Looked defeated. Said he understood. Then he left. I watched from my window as he walked to Chloe's car. Saw him lean in her window. Saw her shake her head. Saw him try again. More head shaking. Then he walked to his own car and drove away. But Chloe stayed. Still watching. Still waiting. I tried to ignore her. Made dinner. Watched Netflix. Did some studying. But I kept checking the window. She was always there. Same position. Same car. Same stare. It was creeping me out. I thought about calling the cops. But what would I say? My sister is sitting in her car? Not illegal. Around midnight, I gave up trying to sleep. Kept imagining her breaking in. Finding me asleep. Doing who knows what. So I sat by my window, watching her watch me. Like some weird stakeout standoff. Neither of us moving. Neither of us backing down. Then I saw her get out of the car. My heart started racing. She was coming up. Coming for me. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911. But she didn't head for my building. She walked to the corner store instead. Came back with a bag. Got back in her car. Resumed watching. This went on for 3 days. 3 days of Chloe in her car. 3 days of me checking windows and locking doors. 3 days of jumping at every noise. Patricia said I was being paranoid. That Chloe was probably just processing. That I should call the cops if I was really scared. But I wasn't scared exactly. I was tired. Tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of letting Chloe control my life even when she wasn't in it. So on day 4, I did something stupid. I went outside, walked right up to her car, knocked on her window. She rolled it down slowly, looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. She'd been crying. Chloe never cried. Not in front of people. Not ever. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then she said something that shocked me. I know what I did to you. Not sorry. Not an apology. Just acknowledgement. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. Just stood there in the street, staring at my sister who'd made my life hell for 8 years. Waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the screaming to start, for something to fly at my head. Instead, she reached into her bag. I flinched, ready to run, but she just pulled out a notebook, handed it to me through the window. I've been writing it all down. Everything I remember. Everything I did. Dr. Martinez said it would help. I took the notebook. Didn't open it. Didn't want to see her list of destructions. She kept talking. Said she'd been in therapy twice a week since I left. Real therapy. Not the family sessions mom usually dragged her to. Said she was on new meds. Said she was trying. I wanted to laugh or scream or throw the notebook back at her. 8 years of torture and now she was trying. Now that I'd finally escaped, but I just stood there, holding her notebook, feeling numb. She wasn't done talking though. Never was when she got started. She told me about the foster family, not mom's version, her version. How they'd adopted her first. How they'd loved her for 3 years. How they'd had a biological daughter and everything changed. How "you don't deserve this" became the soundtrack to her life. How she'd believed them. Then she said something that hit me hard. When I saw you with that trophy, happy and proud and deserving, I couldn't stand it. Because if you deserved good things, maybe I was the problem. Maybe they were right about me. I found myself sitting on the curb, still holding her notebook, still processing. She got out of the car and sat next to me, not close, a careful distance, like she was afraid I'd run, or maybe afraid she'd hurt me again. We sat there in silence for a while. Then she told me about the past week, how mom had been calling her constantly, telling her I'd abandoned them, telling her to go get me, to make me come home, to make me understand family. But for the first time, Chloe had said no, had hung up on her, had blocked her number. That's why she was here. Not to drag me home, not to destroy my apartment, but to warn me. Mom was planning something, had been talking to relatives, gathering allies, planning an intervention. The whole family was supposed to confront me at Thanksgiving, make me see sense, make me come home. She pulled out her phone, showed me the family group chat I'd been removed from, message after message about ungrateful children, about family obligations, about how I was calling mom with worry, about how Chloe needed her sister, Aunt Linda calling me selfish, Cousin Eric saying I'd regret this, Grandma disappointed in my choices. But Chloe had defended me in the chat, in front of everyone, said I deserved to live my own life, said she'd been wrong to hurt me, said mom needed to let me go. The responses were brutal. Now they were turning on her too, calling her ungrateful, saying I'd brainwashed her. I finally opened the notebook, page after page of memories, the trophy incident in detail, the torn acceptance letters, the poisoned food, but also things I'd forgotten or never knew. Times she'd watched me succeed and felt rage. Times she'd planned to hurt me but stopped. Times she'd hated herself for hating me. The last entry was from yesterday. Mia deserves everything good. I know that now. I've always known that. I just couldn't feel it before. The meds help. The therapy helps. But mostly, watching her leave helped. She's free now. Free from me. Free from mom. Free to be brilliant. I did one thing right. I let her go. I handed back the notebook. Told her I needed time. Needed to think. Needed to process 8 years of pain. She nodded. Said she understood. Said she'd leave me alone. But first, she had one more thing to say. About mom. About what was coming. About how to protect myself. Mom had been calling the school. Claiming family emergency. Trying to get my schedule. Trying to find out where I lived. The administration hadn't told her anything. But mom was persistent. She'd also been calling my work. Telling them I was having a breakdown. That I needed help. That family was worried. Chloe had screenshots. Messages where mom discussed tactics. How to force me home. How to make me see I was being selfish. How to use Chloe's trauma to guilt me. How to turn the family against me. How to make my life difficult enough that I'd come crawling back. But here's the kicker. Chloe had been sabotaging her. Deleting messages before mom sent them. Giving her wrong information. Telling relatives I'd moved to a different city. Running interference. My destroyer had become my protector. The world felt upside down. She stood up to leave. Said she'd keep warning me if mom escalated. Said she'd try to keep her distracted. Said she understood if I never wanted to see her again. Then she got in her car and drove away. Left me sitting on the curb with 8 years of trauma and one notebook of regrets. I went back inside and called Patricia. Told her everything. She came over with wine and tissues. We read through Chloe's notebook together. Page by page of pain and recognition. Of a girl who'd been taught she deserved nothing, turning that lesson on everyone else. Of my parents enabling it. Of me suffering for it. Patricia asked what I was going to do. About Chloe. About mom. About Thanksgiving. I didn't know. Part of me wanted to forgive Chloe. She was trying. She was changing. She was protecting me now. But 8 years is a long time. And trauma doesn't just disappear with medication and therapy. The next few weeks were quiet. No mom attacks. No family ambushes. Just me, school, and my tiny apartment. I threw myself into studying. First anatomy exam was coming up. I'd always been good at memorization. At focusing. At shutting everything else out. It's how I'd survived living with Chloe. But I kept thinking about her notebook. About her sitting outside for 3 days. About her blocking mom for me. It didn't erase the past. Didn't heal the scars. But it meant something. Maybe not forgiveness. Maybe not friendship. But something. Then Thanksgiving week arrived. The family group chat exploded again. Patricia showed me screenshots. Everyone confirming they'd be at mom's house. Everyone ready to talk sense into me. Everyone sure they could fix this family crisis. Chloe had tried to warn them off. They'd turned on her completely. Mom texted me directly for the first time in weeks. Sweet as pie. Just wanted her baby girl home for turkey. Just wanted family together. Just wanted to talk. No pressure. No guilt. Just love. I knew better. This was her final play. Get me in that house with 20 relatives. Break me down. Bring me home. I texted back that I had to work. Lie. But whatever. She responded immediately. Said she'd checked with my manager. Knew I had the day off. Said lying to family was beneath me. Said dad was disappointed. Said Chloe was devastated. Said I was breaking hearts. Then came the threats. If I didn't show up, she'd come to me with the whole family. They'd do the intervention at my apartment. In front of my neighbors. In front of everyone. I'd be embarrassed into submission. Classic mom. Public shame was her favorite weapon. I panicked. Called Chloe without thinking. She answered on the first ring. She's serious, Chloe said. I heard her making plans. Aunt Linda's bringing her van. They're going to show up at your place around noon. Make a scene. Force you to listen. I asked why she was helping me. Really asked. Not accusingly. Just curious. She was quiet for a moment. Then said something I'll never forget. Because I spent 8 years taking things from you. Maybe it's time I gave something back. We made a plan. Not together exactly, but parallel. She'd go to Thanksgiving. Play the dutiful daughter. Keep them busy. Keep them distracted. Buy me time to disappear for the day. Maybe they'd give up if they couldn't find me. Maybe they'd realize I was serious. Maybe. Thanksgiving morning, I packed a bag and left my apartment at dawn. Went to Patricia's place. Her family was cool with me joining. Her mom Sandra had heard the stories. Said I was welcome anytime. Said family was about choice, not blood. Made me cry a little. In a good way. I turned off my phone. Didn't want to see the messages. Didn't want to know when they showed up. Didn't want to feel guilty. Just wanted one peaceful holiday. One normal dinner. One day without drama. Patricia's family gave me that. Turkey and stuffing and pie. No screaming. No destruction. No guilt. But I turned my phone on that night. Had to know what happened. 53 missed calls. 100 plus texts. Voicemails I'd never listened to. The last text was from Chloe. They came. They saw you weren't there. They left. Mom's planning something else. Be careful. The next few days were tense. Waiting for mom's next move. Jumping every time someone knocked. Checking windows obsessively. Patricia said I was getting paranoid again. But I knew mom. She didn't give up. She just regrouped. Planned better. Hit harder. Then I got got a call from my academic advisor. Someone had called claiming to be me. Said I was dropping out due to family emergency. Needed to withdraw immediately. The advisor was confused. I just aced my anatomy exam. Why would I quit now? I told her it wasn't me. She said she'd figured. Just wanted to warn me. Next was my landlord, Roy. Got a call saying I'd violated my lease. That I'd moved my whole family in. That neighbors were complaining. He'd driven by to check. Saw nothing. But wanted me to know someone was trying to get me evicted. I explained about my mom. He said he'd ignore any more calls. Then my job. Someone called in sick for me 3 shifts in a row. Manager almost fired me. I had to show him the family group chat. Explain the whole situation. He gave me another chance but said one more issue and I was gone. I started recording everything. Saving screenshots. Building evidence. Chloe kept feeding me information. Mom had recruited Aunt Linda as her main ally. They were researching legal options. Talking about wellness checks. About forced interventions. About getting me declared mentally incompetent. It was insane. I was a straight A medical student. But mom was desperate. I thought about getting a restraining order. Patricia's mom suggested it. But that meant court. Meant facing them. Meant making it all public and legal. I just wanted to be left alone. To study. To work. To live. Why was that so hard for them to understand? Then came the letters. Not emails. Actual letters. From every family member. All saying the same things. How I was hurting mom. How I was abandoning Chloe. How I was selfish and cruel and would regret this. Some were handwritten. Some typed. All designed to break me down. But Chloe's letter was different. Hidden inside Aunt Linda's envelope. A sticky note that just said, "Stay strong. You're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you." It was the first time in 8 years she'd expressed pride in me. In anything I'd done. It hit harder than all the guilt combined. I decided enough was enough. Changed my phone number without telling anyone except Patricia and my job. Got a P.O. box for mail so they couldn't send more letters to my apartment. Even started parking my car in a different lot every day. Yeah, it was exhausting. But it was better than dealing with mom's escalating crazy. 2 weeks passed without incident. I started to relax a little. Maybe they'd given up. Maybe mom had found a new project. Maybe Chloe had convinced them to back off. I should have known better. Mom was just planning her nuclear option. It was a Tuesday when everything went sideways. I was walking to class when I saw them. Mom, dad, Aunt Linda, and 3 cousins. Standing outside the medical building. Holding signs. Actual printed signs. Family abandonment is abuse. And Chloe needs her sister. And my personal favorite. Shame on MIA. Other students were staring. Taking pictures. Whispering. I ducked into a side building and called security. Told them about the harassment. They said they'd handle it. But I could still hear mom through the window. Telling anyone who'd listen about her ungrateful daughter. About poor traumatized Chloe. About family values. I texted Patricia to bring me a hoodie and sunglasses. Snuck out the back way like some kind of criminal. Missed my anatomy lecture. Had to email my professor with some excuse about being sick. He probably thought I was lying. Great. Now mom was messing with my academics too. The protest lasted 3 hours. Security finally made them leave when they started blocking doors. But the damage was done. Everyone in my program had seen it. Had heard the stories. I went from anonymous student to that girl with the crazy family. Some classmates were sympathetic. Others just wanted gossip. That night, Chloe called from a number I didn't recognize. Said mom was planning to come back tomorrow with more people. Making it a daily thing until I cracked. Said she tried to stop her but mom had completely lost it. Was convinced public shame would bring me home. I couldn't do another day of that. Couldn't have my entire medical career start with being known as protest girl. So I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I called mom directly from Patricia's phone so she'd actually answer. The conversation was short. I told her to meet me at a coffee shop near campus. Alone. One chance to talk. She showed up with dad and Aunt Linda. Of course. I almost left right then. But Chloe walked in behind them, saw me, shook her head, mouthed, "I tried," and sat at a different table. Close enough to hear, far enough to give space, still protecting me in her weird way. Mom started immediately. How could I abandon family? How could I hurt Chloe? How could I be so selfish? I let her rant for 5 minutes. Let her get it all out. Dad occasionally nodded. Aunt Linda made disapproving sounds. I just sipped my coffee and waited. When she finally stopped, I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots Chloe had sent, the messages about forcing me home, the plans to call my school, the strategies to make my life miserable. Her face went red. She turned to glare at Chloe, but I wasn't done. I told her about the trophy, the poison, the destroyed books, the years of terror, how she'd enabled it all, how she'd chosen Chloe's trauma over my safety, every single time. Dad looked shocked. Apparently mom had minimized things to him. Aunt Linda tried to interrupt. I kept talking. Then I said the thing that finally shut her up, that I'd gotten into medical school despite her, not because of her, that every achievement she'd forced me to hide had gotten me here, that I was going to be a doctor with or without family support, that I was done being Chloe's emotional punching bag. Mom started crying. Real tears, not manipulation tears. Said she'd only wanted to help Chloe heal, that she'd thought keeping us together would fix everything, that she'd failed both of us. It was the first honest thing she'd said in years. Dad reached for her hand. She pulled away. Chloe stood up then, walked over to our table, looked mom straight in the eye, told her to stop, that she'd tortured me enough, that it was time to let me go, that she was getting help on her own, that she didn't need me to suffer for her anymore. Mom's face crumbled. Aunt Linda tried one more guilt trip, started talking about family loyalty, about forgiveness, about moving forward together. Chloe laughed, actually laughed, asked Linda if she'd forgive someone who poisoned her food, who destroyed her achievements, who made her life hell for 8 years. Linda shut up. I made my terms clear. No more protests, no more calls to my school or job, no more letters or interventions. I'd consider coming to Christmas if they respected boundaries. If not, I'd get a restraining order. Had already talked to a lawyer, was ready to make it legal. Mom nodded, looked defeated. Dad finally spoke up, said he was proud of me, that I'd shown more strength than he ever had, that he should have protected me years ago, that he'd make sure mom kept her promise. It was nice to hear, 8 years late, but nice. He asked if we could text sometimes, just updates. I said maybe. Chloe asked to walk me out, away from mom and the others. Outside, she handed me an envelope, said it was from her therapy fund, money she'd saved from her part-time job, enough to cover what I'd lost from missing work during mom's harassment. I tried to refuse. She insisted, said it was the least she could do. She also said she was moving out, had found a group home for adults with trauma, somewhere she could get intensive therapy, somewhere she couldn't hurt anyone, somewhere mom couldn't use her as a weapon. She'd already put down a deposit, was moving next week. I didn't know what to say. We stood there awkwardly for a minute. 8 years of pain between us, but also something new, understanding maybe, or just exhaustion. She said she hoped I became an amazing doctor, that she'd watch from afar, that she was proud of me. Then she walked back inside. I haven't seen her in person since. The next few months were quiet. Mom kept her promise. No more harassment, no more guilt trips, just silence. Dad texted occasionally, updates about the weather, the dog, safe topics. I responded sometimes, short messages, baby steps. Maybe we'd have a relationship someday, maybe not. I heard about Chloe through dad. She was doing well at the group home, intensive therapy 3 times a week, new medication routine. Art therapy helped her express feelings without destruction. She'd even gotten a job at a plant nursery. Said growing things helped her understand nurturing instead of destroying. Christmas came and went. I didn't go home. Spent it with Patricia's family again. They'd basically adopted me at that point. Her mom Sandra kept saying I needed meat on my bones. Her dad Juan taught me to play dominoes. It was nice, normal. No one screamed about what I didn't deserve. Got a card from mom. Simple, just thinking of you. Love, mom. No guilt, no manipulation, just a card. I didn't respond. Wasn't ready. Maybe wouldn't ever be. But I kept it. Stuck it in a drawer with other complicated memories. Evidence that maybe people could change? Maybe. Spring semester started. I threw myself into studies. Anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, the works. Earned top top marks in everything. Put my white coat photo on Instagram, public, proud, no more hiding achievements. Some relatives saw it, liked it. Small gestures, big meanings, progress. Got a text from an unknown number on my birthday. Just, happy birthday. You deserve all good things. See, I knew it was Chloe. Didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Saved it, actually. Proof that the girl who'd screamed, "You don't deserve this," had finally changed her mind. Only took 8 years. Ran into my cousin Eric at the grocery store. He apologized for the group chat messages. Said he'd been wrong. That family pressure made people do stupid things. That he was proud of me for standing up for myself. We grabbed coffee. Caught up. He said mom was in therapy now too. Finally dealing with her savior complex. The 1-year anniversary of leaving home passed quietly. I'd survived. Thrived even. Top of my class. Great friends. Tiny apartment that was entirely mine. No broken trophies. No poisoned food. No one screaming about what I deserved. Just me. Building the life I'd always wanted. The life I'd hidden for so long. Patricia threw me a party. Small thing. Just close friends. But she made a toast that hit me hard. Said I was the strongest person she knew. That watching me break free had inspired her. That I'd shown her what real courage looked like. Not fighting back. Just refusing to play the game anymore. Walking away. Dad called that night. Said mom wanted to apologize. Had written a letter. Asked if he could send it. I said yes. The letter came a week later. 3 pages of mom recognizing her mistakes. How she'd failed me. How she'd enabled Chloe. How she'd prioritized fixing Chloe over protecting me. How sorry she was. I didn't respond to that either. Wasn't ready for forgiveness. Maybe never would be. But I read it multiple times. Kept it with the Christmas card. Evidence of change, of growth, of a family that had finally stopped expecting me to light myself on fire to keep others warm. It was enough for now. Second year of medical school started. Harder classes, longer hours, but I loved it. Every minute. Even the brutal exams. Even the endless studying. Because it was mine. My achievement. My future. No one could throw this trophy at my head. No one could poison this success. No one could tell me I didn't deserve it.
My daughter signed away her baby, so we raised him as our own. 25 years later, she showed up to extort us for money. When my daughter Mildred was 18, she got me a gift. It was a pregnancy stick with 2 pink lines. I sighed. She had always been more on the careless side, the type to never think things through. I couldn't even get a word in before she started hollering, "And I'm not getting a baby termination, so y'all better step up." For context, by y'all, she meant me and her father, and by step up, she meant dedicating our lives to raising her baby for her. Well, me and my husband love babies and always wanted to have more children, so we agreed pretty quickly, and soon Mildred was practically shoving forms in our face. She insisted on signing away her parental rights because she didn't want any responsibility in case my grandparents ran into money problems, as if she had any money to give. Anyway, Philip ended up being an amazing son. He was curious and kind, never asked without saying please, always offering to help my husband with his work. Unfortunately, he was an accountant and could never take him up on the offer, but the gesture was unbelievably wholesome, and when he turned 10, he started asking about his bio mom, our daughter. It was clear he wanted a relationship with her. Every Mother's Day, he'd write 2 cards and had a stack of envelopes labeled "To Mommy" in a box under his bed. Plus, he tried to contact her and asked for a meeting over 12 times when he turned 11 years old. Me and my husband always tried to distract him from this, to reassure him that we loved him as our own. But it wasn't until the 13th time our daughter shut him down that he finally gave up and started living his own life. I did everything I could to make him feel welcomed into our home. Me and my husband both gave up our savings so he could go to college without getting a part-time job. We made sure that he went on holiday at least once a year, with just one of us tagging along with him. By the time he was 22, it seemed like he had forgotten all about his mother. She was still talking to us but never asked about me or tried to have a mother-son relationship. I was always extremely grateful for this, because by this point I loved Philip more than I could ever love Mildred, and she purposely kept us from her life too. She had us blocked on every social media platform, including WhatsApp. All I knew was that she had married someone new across the country. Good riddance. My son ended up dropping out of college because he and his friends had started a car cleaning business. His marketing was so good that business soared, and he always gave me and my husband 15% of all his earnings to thank us for being so amazing. There was just one thing I hated about him. He was dead set on paying us back so we could experience what we missed while raising him. It ticked me off a lot because I never wanted him to feel like that, and we enjoyed raising him more than we would have enjoyed doing anything else. A year later, he met the love of his life, Amber, and she was a sweetheart. Little did I know, his life wasn't going to be all sunshine and rainbows, because as we all sat around the table for Thanksgiving dinner, he got a call. I figured it was a new client, and my face was practically beaming with pride. He even put it on speakerphone, but as soon as he picked up, my heart dropped. It was Mildred. She asked how he was doing, and he kept all the answers short but firm. It was at that moment that I realized he had truly stopped loving her. She asked to meet at a restaurant, and he said he'd think about it before hanging up. "Honey, me and your father can go with you?" I offered, because his eyebrows were furrowed like he was actually considering it. "That would be amazing," he exclaimed, his cheeriness lighting up the entire room. I myself knew she was up to no good. She hadn't tried to establish a relationship in 25 years, and I knew what she was like. When we sat down at the fanciest restaurant in town, she didn't even hug my son or ask how he was doing. "So what's the meal budget for tonight?" was the first thing she blurted. My son just shrugged his shoulders before saying whatever, and she ordered the lobster ravioli with a bottle of white wine. When she caught sight of my son's lock screen, she pounced. "Oh wow, is that your girlfriend? She's beautiful." Her voice sounded so fake that the entire table was quiet for a few seconds before she spoke again. "It reminds me of me and my recently divorced husband. We used to be so cute." I asked her what happened, and she told me she had cheated on him. My son rolled his eyes. "Stuff just happens sometimes. Anyway, I'm really struggling to find a job right now. Do you think you could help me out?" I guess. Great. What she said next shook me to my core. "I'm going to need around $14,000 to secure an apartment. I'll send you my bank details, so make sure to send the money before the weekend." I expected my son to get angry, but instead he just nodded and waited for the food to arrive. So I opened my mouth to speak and rip her a new one, but then I felt a pinch under the table. It was my son, so I just stayed quiet. Little did I know, my sweet son had an ace up his sleeve, and my daughter was finally going to suffer the way she deserved. When we got home that night, I was still fuming. I paced around the kitchen while Larry made us some tea, trying to calm me down. Philip sat at the counter, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. "I just don't understand how you can be so calm about this," I said to him. "That woman abandoned you, ignored you for years, and now she just waltzes back into your life demanding money?" Philip looked up from his phone with that same mysterious smile. "Mom, trust me, I've got this handled." "What does that even mean?" I asked, exasperated. He showed me his phone screen. He'd opened his banking app and was in the middle of making a transfer to an account I didn't recognize. The amount? Exactly $14. $14? I asked, confused. Yep, she asked for money. She didn't specify how much in her text, so I'm giving her money. $14 should cover a nice lunch, right? Larry burst out laughing. I couldn't help but join in. The tension in my shoulders finally released. My boy wasn't a pushover after all. You're something else, kid, Larry said, patting Philip on the back. The next morning, I was making breakfast when Philip's phone started blowing up with notifications. He was still asleep, but his phone was on the kitchen counter charging. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the messages kept popping up on his screen. Where's the rest of it? One read. This isn't funny, came another. I need that money by tomorrow. I woke Philip up and showed him. He just chuckled, typed something quick, and went to take a shower. I couldn't help myself. I peeked at what he'd written. Sorry, budget's tight this month. Hope the $14 helps. The calls started coming in around noon. Philip ignored them all, letting them go to voicemail. By evening, there were 17 missed calls from Mildred. Philip listened to the voicemails with the phone on speaker so Larry and I could hear. Each one got progressively angrier and more desperate. You think this is some kind of joke? She screamed in the last one. I'll show you what happens when you mess with me. I started to worry. Maybe we should call the police? That sounded like a threat. Philip shook his head. She's all talk. Always has been, right? I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. I knew Mildred better than he did. She could be vindictive when she didn't get her way. 3 days passed with no word from Mildred. I started to relax, thinking maybe she'd given up. Philip went back to work at his car cleaning business, and life seemed to return to normal. Then it happened. I got a frantic call from Philip around lunchtime. Mom, she's here, at the business, making a scene. I grabbed my keys and Larry, and we raced over to Philip's shop. When we pulled up, I could hear the shouting from the parking lot. Mildred was standing in the middle of the reception area, screaming at the top of her lungs while customers looked on in horror. You owe me. I gave birth to you. The least you could do is help your mother out. Philip was standing there, calm as could be, hands slightly raised in a placating gesture. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disrupting my business. Ma'am, I'm your mother, you ungrateful little poop. I stepped forward, ready to intervene, but Larry held me back. Let him handle it, he whispered, and handle it he did. Philip walked over to Mildred, still completely composed, and spoke in a quiet, firm voice. You need to leave now, or I'll call the police. Go ahead, call them. I'll tell them how you promised me money and then went back on your word. I saw Philip's assistant Ralph discreetly picking up the phone. Good boy. Philip gently took Mildred's elbow and started guiding her toward the door. I never promised you $14,000. I said I would help you out, and I sent you what I could afford. Now please leave before you embarrass yourself further. What happened next shocked me. Mildred reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and shoved it in Philip's face. See this? I've been recording this whole thing, and I've got the text where you agreed to help me. I'm going to post this online and show everyone what kind of son abandons his mother in her time of need. I later found out she'd only started recording halfway through the confrontation, after she'd already been screaming and causing a scene, but the damage was done. She stormed out, nearly knocking over a display of car air fresheners on her way. Philip spent the next hour apologizing to customers and offering discounts on their next visit. 3 people canceled their appointments on the spot. I could see the worry on his face, though he tried to hide it. That night, as we sat around our kitchen table trying to figure out what to do next, Philip's phone dinged with a notification. It was a link from Amber. Mildred had posted the video on Facebook, edited to make it look like Philip was coldly turning away his desperate mother. She'd added a long caption about how her son, who ran a successful business, refused to help her avoid homelessness. The comments were brutal. People calling Philip heartless, saying they'd never use his services, some even threatening to leave bad reviews on his business page. This is slander, Larry said, his face red with anger. We can sue her for this. Philip shook his head. That would just drag this out longer. I have a better idea. The next day, Philip posted a video of his own. He sat in his office, looking directly at the camera, and calmly explained the situation. How Mildred had given him up at birth, how she'd rejected his attempts to connect as a child, how she'd suddenly reappeared demanding $14,000 after 25 years of no contact. He showed screenshots of their text exchanges, including her immediate jump to asking for money without even asking about his life. I don't hold any grudges, he said at the end. I wish her well, but I won't be manipulated or bullied, and I won't let false accusations damage the business I've built through hard work and honest service. The response was overwhelming. Comments flooded in supporting Philip. Customers posted about their positive experiences with his business. The tide of public opinion turned quickly, but Mildred wasn't done. A week later, Philip got a call from the local police department. Someone had filed a report accusing him of theft. According to the report, Philip had verbally agreed to loan Mildred money and then refused to follow through, which the complainant was trying to classify as theft by deception. The officer who called sounded skeptical about the whole thing, but said they had to investigate any formal complaint. Philip had to go down to the station to give a statement. I went with him for moral support, and I've never been prouder of how he handled himself. He calmly explained the situation, showed them the text messages, and even pulled up the bank transfer of $14 he'd sent her. The officer actually chuckled at that. So you did send her money, just not as much as she wanted? Yes, sir, Philip replied. I never specified an amount in our texts. She asked for help, and I helped as much as I felt comfortable with. The investigation was closed pretty quickly after that. The officer told us off the record that these kinds of disputes weren't really police matters anyway. They were civil issues at best. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Mildred must have realized she couldn't get to Philip directly, so she changed tactics. She showed up at our house one afternoon when Philip wasn't there. Just me and Larry. I almost didn't recognize her standing on our porch. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, clothes rumpled, eyes red from crying or drinking or both. Can I come in? She asked, her voice small and pitiful. Please, Mom. I just want to talk. Against my better judgment, I let her in. Larry was in his study working, and I called him down. His face hardened when he saw Mildred sitting at our kitchen table. What do you want now? He asked. She burst into tears, big dramatic sobs that shook her whole body. I've made such a mess of everything, she wailed. I just needed help, and I didn't know how to ask properly. I handed her a tissue, keeping my distance emotionally. I'd seen this performance before. Why did you file a police report against Philip? I asked. She wiped her eyes. I was desperate. I really am about to be homeless. My ex-husband is cutting me off completely, and I have nowhere to go. So you thought the solution was to try to get your son arrested? Larry's voice was ice cold. I wasn't trying to get him arrested. I just wanted someone to make him help me. She turned to Larry, her eyes suddenly calculating. Dad, you understand, don't you? You always understood me better than Mom did. I saw something flicker in Larry's eyes. Doubt? Sympathy? Whatever it was. It worried me. He has the money, she continued. His business is doing so well. What's $14,000 to him. It's nothing, but it would save my life. Mildred, I said firmly, Philip doesn't owe you anything. You signed away your parental rights. You rejected him when he reached out to you. You can't just show up 25 years later demanding money. But he's my son, she cried. No, I said, standing up. He's our son. We raised him. We loved him. We were there for every skinned knee, every school play, every heartbreak. Where were you? She turned to Larry again. Dad, please, talk to him for me. He'll listen to you. To my horror, Larry hesitated. Maybe we could help you out a little. Not the full amount, but something to get you on your feet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Larry, no. She's manipulating you. She's still our daughter, Margaret, he said, using my full name like he always did when we disagreed about something serious. And what about Philip? What message does that send to him? Mildred saw her opening and pounced. Philip doesn't need to know. It could just be between us. A family helping family. I was about to argue further when we heard the front door open. Philip was home early. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Mildred at our kitchen table. His face went completely blank, that same neutral expression he'd had at the restaurant. What's going on here? He asked quietly. Your mother came to apologize, Larry said quickly. Mildred nodded eagerly. Yes, I feel terrible about everything. I was hoping we could start fresh. Philip looked at me. I couldn't hide my skepticism, and he picked up on it immediately. Is that really why you're here? He asked Mildred. She nodded again, eyes wide and innocent. Of course. What other reason would I have? To try to get money from my parents since you couldn't get it from me. Her face changed so fast it was almost comical. The tears dried up instantly, replaced by a cold glare. Well, what did you expect? You're living the high life while I'm suffering. Someone in this family needs to step up. Philip just shook his head. I think you should leave now. Not until I get what I came for, she snapped. And what exactly did you come for, Mildred? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. She looked at Larry. Dad was just about to help me out, weren't you, Dad? Larry looked uncomfortable. I said we might be able to help a little. Philip's face fell. I could see the hurt in his eyes, the feeling of betrayal. It broke my heart. Dad, she's using you, Philip said quietly, just like she's trying to use me. Larry looked torn. I put my hand on his arm. Listen to him, Larry. He's right. Mildred stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Fine, be that way. All of you. I'll figure it out myself, like I always have to. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Philip wouldn't look at Larry. Larry stared at the floor, ashamed. I'm sorry, son, he finally said. I don't know what came over me. She's always been able to wrap you around her finger, Philip replied, his voice flat. Even after everything she's done. He turned and walked out of the kitchen. I heard his car start a few minutes later. He didn't come home that night. The next few days were tense. Philip was distant, focusing on damage control for his business. The video Mildred had posted had caused some problems, even though Philip's response had helped. A few negative reviews had appeared online, clearly fake but harmful nonetheless. Larry was beating himself up for almost falling for Mildred's manipulation. I tried to reassure him, but the truth was, I was disappointed too. After all these years, he should have known better. Philip finally came over for dinner about a week later. He seemed preoccupied, checking his phone constantly. Everything okay? I asked as we cleared the dishes. Yeah, just waiting for a call, he said vaguely. The call came just as we were having dessert. Philip excused himself to take it in the living room. When he came back, he was smiling that calculating smile again. That was Amber, he said. Everything's set for tomorrow night. What's tomorrow night? Larry asked. I've invited Mildred to dinner, a peace offering. I nearly dropped my fork. You what? After everything she's done? He nodded. I think it's time we resolve this situation once and for all. I'd like you both to come too. Philip, I don't think that's a good idea. I started. Please, Mom, trust me on this. I know what I'm doing. There was something in his eyes that made me believe him, so against my better judgment, I agreed. Larry did too, though he looked as uncertain as I felt. The restaurant Philip chose was even fancier than the last one, a place where a meal for four could easily run $500 or more. When we arrived, Mildred was already there, looking much better than she had at our house. Her hair was done, she wore a new-looking dress, and her nails were freshly manicured. So much for being broke, I thought. Philip greeted her with a hug, which surprised me. She looked surprised too, but quickly recovered, playing the role of the delighted mother reunited with her son. I'm so glad you called, she gushed. I've been feeling terrible about how things went. Water under the bridge, Philip said smoothly. Let's just enjoy dinner, shall we? The meal started pleasantly enough. Philip asked Mildred questions about her life, seeming genuinely interested in her answers. She soaked up the attention, talking nonstop about herself. I noticed Philip kept refilling her wine glass. By the time the main course arrived, she was on her fourth glass and getting loose-lipped. So, Mildred, Philip said casually, tell me more about this apartment you need money for. She launched into a detailed description of a luxury condo with ocean views. It's absolutely perfect, she sighed, but the deposit is killer. And you don't have any savings from your marriage or previous jobs? She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, I've never been good with money. And Richard, my ex, he's being such a jerk about the divorce settlement. That must be tough, Philip said sympathetically. So what's your plan if you can't get the money from family? She took another big sip of wine. Oh, I'll figure something out. I always do. She leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. Like what? Philip prompted. She giggled. Well, that police report was just the beginning. If that didn't work, I was thinking of calling some of your big clients, telling them some sob stories about how you mistreat your poor mother. I gasped. Larry's hand tightened around his fork. Philip just nodded calmly. That's an interesting strategy. So the whole thing about being homeless was just a lie to get money from me? She shrugged. Not entirely. I do need a place to stay, but maybe not as desperately as I made it sound. She laughed. You should have seen your dad's face when I cried at your house. He was ready to write me a check on the spot. So you admit you were manipulating us? Philip asked, his voice still casual. Oh, come on. It's not manipulation. It's just knowing which buttons to push. She winked at him. You're my son. You should want to help me. Even though you abandoned me and rejected me when I tried to reach out to you as a kid, her face hardened slightly. That was different. I wasn't ready to be a mother then. And now you're ready to be a mother when you need money? She rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. This is how family works. You help each other out. By lying and filing false police reports? She leaned back in her chair. Look, I did what I had to do, and I'd do it again if I needed to. That's just who I am. Philip smiled and reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times. Thanks for clarifying that, Mildred. I just wanted to make sure I understood exactly where we stand. Her eyes narrowed. What do you mean? He turned his phone around to show her the screen. It was a recording app, and it had been running the entire time. The color drained from her face. You recorded me? Yep, every word, including your admission that you lied about needing money to avoid homelessness, that you filed a false police report, and that you were planning to contact my clients with more lies if that didn't work. You can't do that. That's illegal, she sputtered. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording. That would be me. He pocketed his phone. I think we're done here. Mildred looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route. You wouldn't really use that against me, would you? I'm your mother. No, Philip said firmly. Margaret is my mother. Larry is my father. You're just someone who gave birth to me and then decided I wasn't worth your time until you wanted something from me. He stood up, dropping several $100 bills on the table. Dinner's on me. Enjoy the rest of your meal if you want. We're leaving. As we walked out, I heard Mildred call after us, her voice desperate now. Philip, wait! I'm sorry. We can work this out. But Philip didn't look back. None of us did. In the parking lot, I hugged my son tight. I'm so proud of you, I whispered. Thanks, Mom, he said. But it's not over yet. What do you mean? Larry asked. Philip checked his watch. By now, Amber has uploaded the full audio recording to my social media accounts, along with a statement explaining the situation. The truth is finally out there for everyone to hear. I checked my phone. Sure enough, there it was. A post from Philip's business account with the recording and a simple, straightforward explanation of the events of the past few weeks. You planned all this? I asked, amazed. He nodded. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist bragging about her schemes if she thought she was winning. People like Mildred always want credit for how clever they think they are. We drove home in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. I kept thinking about how Philip had handled the whole situation, with dignity, intelligence, and a level head. He'd outmaneuvered Mildred at every turn without stooping to her level. The fallout was swift and severe. By the next morning, Mildred's social media accounts were flooded with negative comments. People who had initially sympathized with her were now calling her out for her manipulation and lies. The few friends who had stood by her quickly distanced themselves. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then came the final confrontation. 3 days after the dinner, Mildred showed up at Philip's business again. This time she wasn't shouting. She looked defeated, broken. I was there helping with some paperwork when she walked in. Philip saw her and sighed. What now, Mildred? He asked wearily. You've ruined me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. My friends won't talk to me. I can't get a job because that recording is everywhere. I really am going to be homeless now. Philip looked at her for a long moment. That's not my problem, he finally said. She took a step toward him, her face twisting with anger. How can you be so cold? I gave you life, and then you threw me away, he replied calmly. You made your choices, Mildred. Now you're facing the consequences. She lunged forward suddenly, her hand raised as if to slap him. I jumped up, ready to intervene, but Philip caught her wrist midair. Don't, he said quietly. Just don't. The fight seemed to drain out of her all at once. She sagged, tears streaming down her face. What am I supposed to do now? She whispered. For a moment, I saw a flicker of compassion in Philip's eyes. Despite everything, part of him still cared about the woman who had given birth to him. Get help, he said gently. Real help. For whatever issues make you treat people this way. And then maybe, someday, we can try to have some kind of relationship, but not like this. Never like this. He released her wrist and stepped back. I'm not giving you money. I'm not letting you manipulate me or my parents anymore. This ends now. She stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked out without another word. As the door closed behind her, Philip let out a long breath. I went to him and put my arm around his shoulders. Are you okay? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I finally am. I didn't see Mildred for almost 2 weeks after that confrontation at Philip's shop. I kept expecting her to pop up again with some new scheme, but there was nothing. Just silence. I was starting to think maybe she'd finally gotten the message and moved on. Then one morning, I was checking my email and saw something that made my stomach drop. It was from Mildred, sent to me, Larry, and Philip. The subject line just said, goodbye. I opened it with shaking hands. It was short, just a few lines about how she couldn't handle the public humiliation anymore and was going to end it all. Classic Mildred, always with the drama. But what if she was serious this time? I called Philip immediately. Did you see the email? I asked as soon as he picked up. Yeah, I saw it, he sighed. Don't worry, Mom. She's not going to hurt herself. How can you be so sure? I was already grabbing my car keys, ready to drive to her last known address, because I just got a notification that she posted on Instagram 10 minutes ago, a selfie at some coffee shop with the caption, New Beginnings. I collapsed back into my chair, relief washing over me. So it's just another manipulation tactic. Exactly. She's hoping we'll panic and reach out, maybe offer money to help her get back on her feet after her darkest moment. I had to admit, he had her number. What should we do? Nothing, he said firmly. Absolutely nothing. And that's what we did. None of us responded to the email. Philip blocked her on all his social media and changed his phone number. Larry and I did the same. It felt harsh, but necessary. Like cutting out a cancer before it could spread further. Life started getting back to normal. Philip's business recovered from the temporary hit to its reputation. In fact, the whole drama had actually brought him some new customers who admired how he'd handled the situation. People love a good redemption story, I guess. About a month after the Sewers Light email, I was at the grocery store when my cart accidentally bumped into someone else's. I looked up to apologize and found myself face to face with Richard, Mildred's ex-husband. Margaret, he said, looking surprised. Is that you? I hadn't seen Richard in years, not since before the divorce. He looked older, of course, but good, healthy, happy. Richard, hi, I said, not sure what else to say. What's the proper etiquette when you run into your estranged daughter's ex-husband? He saved me from having to figure it out. I heard about what happened with Mildred and Philip. I'm really sorry. I shrugged. It's not your fault. No, but he hesitated. I feel like I should have warned you. When she started talking about reconnecting with Philip, I knew she was up to something. She'd just maxed out all her credit cards and was looking for a new source of cash. So she really was broke? I asked. He nodded. Oh yeah, but not because I cut her off like she claimed. The divorce settlement was more than fair. She just blows through money like water. We ended up getting coffee after finishing our shopping. Richard filled me in on a lot of things I hadn't known. How Mildred had cheated on him multiple times. How she'd emptied their joint savings account before telling him she wanted a divorce. How she'd tried to turn their friends against him with lies about abuse. It's like she can't help herself, he said, stirring his coffee absently. She sees people as resources to be used, not as human beings. I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for Mildred's behavior when she was growing up. The stolen money from my purse that I convinced myself I'd misplaced. The lies about where she was going that I pretended to believe because the truth was too painful. The way I'd let her manipulate Larry over and over. I enabled her, I admitted, for years. Richard reached across the table and patted my hand. We all did, in our own ways. But Philip didn't. That kid of yours has a strong backbone. I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. Yes, he does. When I got home, I told Larry about running into Richard. He says Mildred's moved to Arizona, started fresh with a new group of people who don't know her history. Larry just nodded. nodded, looking tired. The whole ordeal had aged him. He'd taken it harder than me in some ways, especially after almost falling for her manipulation that day at our house. Good, maybe she'll stay there. But of course, that wasn't the end of it. Nothing ever is with Mildred. 3 months later, Philip and Amber got engaged. They decided to have a small party at their house to celebrate, just family and close friends. About 20 people total. I was in the kitchen helping Amber set up the food when the doorbell rang. I heard Philip answer it, then silence. Too much silence. I peeked around the corner and felt my heart sink. Mildred was standing in the doorway, holding a gift bag and smiling like she'd been invited. "Surprise!" she said, trying to push past Philip into the house. "I heard my baby boy is getting married." Philip blocked her entry. "How did you find out about this? How did you even know where I live?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, I have my ways. Aren't you going to invite me in? I brought champagne." I stepped forward, ready to back Philip up, but he gave me a look that said he had this handled. "Mildred," he said calmly, "you weren't invited." Her smile faltered. "But I'm your mother. Of course I should be at your engagement party." "No, you're not invited," he repeated, "and you're not welcome here." Her face darkened. "Is this because of that little misunderstanding we had? I thought we were past that." "It wasn't a misunderstanding. You tried to extort money from me, filed a false police report against me, and threatened to destroy my business. Then you sent a fake sewer slide threat when that didn't work." She had the audacity to look offended. "I was in a bad place. You could show a little compassion." By this point, other guests had noticed the commotion. They were watching curiously from inside. I saw Amber coming up behind Philip, her face concerned. "What's going on?" she asked. "Nothing," Philip said, not taking his eyes off Mildred. "She was just leaving." Mildred's gaze shifted to Amber, and I saw something ugly flash in her eyes. "So you're the one who's taking my son away from me?" Amber blinked in surprise. "Excuse me? He was going to help me until you turned him against me," Mildred hissed. "You think you're so perfect with your pretty face and your—" "That's enough," Philip cut her off, his voice hard. "You need to leave. Now, or I'm calling the police." She looked around, seeming to realize for the first time that she had an audience. People were watching her with expressions ranging from confusion to disgust. She was losing, and she knew it. "Fine," she snapped, shoving the gift bag at Philip. "I just wanted to give you this, to show there are no hard feelings." Philip took the bag cautiously. He peeked inside, then closed it quickly. His face went pale. "Get out," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "And don't ever contact me or my family again." She smirked, thinking she'd scored a point. "Enjoy your party," she said sweetly, then turned and walked back to her car. As soon as she drove away, I rushed to Philip. "What was in the bag?" He handed it to me wordlessly. I looked inside and felt sick. It was a baby onesie with grandma's favorite printed on it, and a note that said, "When you have kids, I'll be part of their lives whether you like it or not." The party mood was dampened after that. Philip tried to put on a brave face, but I could tell he was rattled. The idea of Mildred trying to worm her way into his future children's lives clearly disturbed him. Later that night, after most of the guests had left, Philip, Amber, Larry, and I sat in their living room trying to figure out what to do. "We could get a restraining order," Larry suggested. "On what grounds?" Philip asked. "She hasn't technically threatened us." "That onesie felt pretty threatening to me," Amber said quietly. She'd been unusually silent all evening. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "We won't let her anywhere near your future children, honey. I promise." Philip ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "I thought I'd handled this. I thought she'd finally gotten the message. People like Mildred don't change," I said sadly. "They just find new angles." We didn't come up with any concrete solutions that night, but we agreed to be vigilant. Philip installed security cameras at their house the next day, just in case. Weeks passed with no sign of Mildred. The wedding plans progressed. Amber found a beautiful dress. They booked a venue for the following spring. Life went on. Then one evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered it. "Hello, is this Margaret?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Janice. I'm Richard's new partner." "Mildred's ex-husband?" My guard went up immediately. "How did you get my number?" "From Richard. He thought you should know. Mildred's been arrested." I sat down hard on the nearest chair. "Arrested? For what?" "Credit card fraud. She stole Richard's card information and ran up thousands in charges. But that's not why I'm calling." She paused. She had a notebook. The police found it when they searched her apartment. It had all these plans, ways to get money from Philip, details about his business, his home address, even Amber's work schedule. It was disturbing. My blood ran cold. "Have you told the police about her history with Philip?" "Richard is talking to them now. They're taking it seriously. With the fraud charges and this evidence of stalking, they're pushing for jail time." I thanked her for the information and immediately called Philip. He and Amber came right over, and we filled them in on what Janice had told me. "So she's been watching us?" Amber asked, her voice small. "All this time?" Philip put his arm around her. "It's going to be okay. She can't hurt us now." We later learned that Mildred had been planning to approach Amber when she was alone, to try to convince her to pressure Philip into helping out his poor mother. There were notes about using the future grandchildren as leverage. It was calculated and cold, and it sent chills down my spine. Mildred ended up getting 18 months for the fraud charges. The evidence of stalking helped secure the sentence, even though they couldn't charge her separately for that without more direct proof of intent to harm. The day she was sentenced, Philip, Larry, and I sat in the courtroom watching. She didn't look at us once, didn't acknowledge our presence in any way. It was like we were strangers. As they led her away, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for the daughter I'd lost long ago, relief that she couldn't hurt us anymore, at least for a while, and a deep, profound gratitude for the son who had stood his ground and protected his family. The wedding went ahead as planned the following spring. It was beautiful. Amber was radiant, and Philip couldn't stop smiling. They'd decided on a small ceremony in a garden, with just their closest friends and family. During the reception, Philip pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing me a small box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a heart. "What's this for?" I asked, blinking back tears. "For being my real mom," he said simply. "For loving me when she couldn't, or wouldn't." I hugged him tight, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Later, as Larry and I were slow dancing, I spotted Philip and Amber across the room. They were laughing about something, their heads close together, completely wrapped up in each other and their future. "We did good with him," Larry murmured in my ear. I nodded, resting my head on his shoulder. "Yes, we did." Mildred was released after serving 14 months. She didn't try to contact us again. According to Richard, who heard from a mutual friend, she moved to Florida and started over, again. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about what she lost. Not the money she tried to extort, but the relationship with her son. The chance to know him as the amazing man he became. The opportunity to be part of his life, his wedding, his future family. But mostly, I'm just grateful. Grateful that Philip found the strength to to stand up to her manipulation. Grateful that he chose to break the cycle rather than enable it. Grateful that, despite everything, he still has the capacity to love and trust. 2 years after the wedding, Amber gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Philip called us from the hospital, his voice choked with emotion. "They're perfect, Mom," he said. "Absolutely perfect." When we arrived at the hospital, he placed his daughter in my arms. "Meet your granddaughter, Margaret," he said softly. I looked down at her tiny face, so peaceful in sleep, and felt my heart expand. This was what family should be. Not manipulation or obligation or guilt, just love, freely given and gratefully received. As for Mildred, well, she made her choices, and we made ours.